Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Ariona and I'm an Education USA advisor in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Today I'll be talking about undergraduate admissions, procedure, application materials, and about funding, financial aid, and scholarship for undergraduate students. If you have any questions, feel free to submit, but I'll answer your questions at the end when it's question time. So today I'll be talking about how to find your fit schools and about admissions procedure and the essential elements of your application. I'll be talking about other additional elements for your application, as well as about financial aid and scholarships, the types of financial aid and scholarships, and I'll give you some tips and advices. So finding your fit school is very important because the next 4 years, you'll be 4 or 5, 6 years, you'll be spending at that institution, and transferring to another institution will take time and will cost money. So it's better to take time to research the matching university for yourself. That will provide the best education for yourself at the cost that you can afford. So U.S. higher institutions vary. You might find public university very suitable for your case, or private universities. The difference between public and private universities is that public universities cost lower, the tuition cost lower for international students, and private universities cost higher, but they provide more scholarships for international students, and public universities might not provide as high in scholarships as private universities do. And also there are so many private, good, small private institutions in the US, whereas most public universities are big in size. However, there are big private universities as well. Also, it's good idea to explore in which kind of environment would you need to study. Was it city, urban environment, or is it more rural, suburban area? So if you go to city or urban environment and study in urban city, maybe transportation might be easy because maybe you could use public transportation to get around the city, and there might be more entertainment for students. And also the campus can be scattered. Maybe there won't be any campus in the city because the houses might be scattered all over the city. Maybe housing might be difficult to find in the city because in the city, in the downtown, there are lots of business organizations, so housing might be something to consider in the city. About rural area, in most rural areas, usually universities have campus, and they have services and entertainment places and shops that are needed for the students available in the campus. However, if you want to travel, if you want to go to the city, it might be difficult. Maybe the public transportation won't be available for students in that rural area. Another thing to consider is student life. What do you accept studying? What do you want to do during your free time? Do you want to participate in sports or in club? Do you have any specific interest? It's a good idea to explore your interest and see if that institutions have that clubs and sports and other facilities available for you. Also, size is very important. The size varies across institutions, and think about if you would achieve more in small environment or in large student population. So if you study in small college with a small number of students, the faculty interaction is higher. So if you prefer to interact with your professor more often, if you want to work with the professors, or if you want hands-on experience with the professors, it's better to choose small college. However, if you want to study in, if you want to pursue, if you want to participate in sports team, let's say, usually public big universities or private even, big universities have sports teams in higher divisions. And also consider the percentage of international students, because the higher the international students are on campus, the better the services are. However, some universities with low international student number might be willing to enroll more international students. Maybe they might be thinking of expanding their international student population. So think about whether you want to interact more with international students, or if you want to be more in American style, like let's say American students interact. Do you want to interact more with American students, or do you want the presence of international students on campus? Academic programs is important, of course. If you decided already what kind of major do you want to pursue, or the area, it's good to search the schools based on that. However, if you have not specifically decided which area or major you want to study, then you could choose liberal arts program. In liberal arts program, you take courses from sciences, from social sciences, from humanities, and then you decide when you're in the last semester of your sophomore year, you decide where you want to go, which path you want to choose. You can also decide your area. For example, engineering. You could decide, I want to get bachelor's in engineering, but you might not know whether it would be in mechanical engineering or in electrical engineering, let's say. Then you could enroll in School of Engineering as an undecided student. That way you can take general courses, and then you can decide which program. Programs really vary across institutions. So take time to explore what the program will cover and what major you can graduate with. Also, at U.S. higher institution, you can double major. For example, you can major in history and then major in engineering. You can have major and minor. You can have major in engineering, let's say, and then minor in history. So from all these criteria, think about what do you want to do, where you want to study, what kind of experience do you want to gain when you are in the U.S. Then narrow your choices based on that. If you've already started admissions, if you already started searching for your schools, you have seen probably the selectivity of schools. What is highly selective admissions? So, so-called highly selective admissions, it's usually the university is ranked higher by external agencies, and they accept only a small amount of students from the applicants. So they do not enroll all the applicants that apply, and they do not enroll all the applicants that satisfy the criteria of the institution. They enroll only a small number of students. And also the students admitted to highly selective universities will usually have very outstanding academic profiles, very high scores, and high extracurricular activities, very well-written essays, and good recommendation letters. The universities are divided. Some universities will be selective, and some universities will have highly selective admissions. So if the university is selective, it means usually the less than 50% of the applicants are admitted. If the university is highly selective, usually it means less than 20% of the applicants are selected. Rankings. So ranking in the U.S., there's no official institution that produces ranking. There are many rankings. However, the U.S. News and World Report is the most famous one. Do not rely on that ranking because there's no official ranking, and it's based on the opinions of students, public, whether the institution is good or not. However, it might be a good source to have when you select your university. However, but don't solely trust or don't solely base your decision on the ranking. So students always ask, what's the difference between college and university? If it's college, usually the higher education institution does not offer master's or doctorate degree. However, it's not always the case. Some colleges used to offer only bachelor's degree, and then they expanded their program, and now they offer maybe master's and doctorate even. University usually refers to an institution that provides graduate degree. However, it's always not the case. So we use college and university interchangeably, especially on this presentation. So how does it work? High selective admissions, how does it work? So highly selective universities, they make their decision on a holistic review process. They review transcripts, extracurricular activities, recommendation letters, essays, everything that students submit. And then they make their decision. They might review the application materials maybe once or twice. Some even have different phases, and if the student passed the first phase, then they go to the second, and then their materials will be reviewed by another committee. The materials can be reviewed by faculty members and other admissions officers. The less selective admissions, however, would usually base their decision on scores and GPA scores, TOEFL, and if you meet that score, you will be admitted. So that's the difference. So these are 5 essential elements for your application. Academic achievement, standardized testing, extracurricular activities, letters of recommendation, essay, or personal statement. These are the things you need to submit to each institution if you want to pursue your bachelor's degree in the US. And I'll go through each of them. The application, some institutions have their own application form, and many institutions use common application, and it's one application form used by many colleges and universities. So how it works is that you log in, you create username and password, and you create one application form, and you choose your schools, then you submit that application. And because common application is one application for all colleges, most colleges and universities require supplements. And supplements can be in different forms. Can be additional essays about why the student wants to study at that institution. It can be additional questions about their family members, and if the student wants if the student is applying to any other institution. So supplements are common material. What do universities consider? High school context is very important because international students, they attend in various schools, and even in one country, the high school context is very, very different. So they, through applications, they look at what kind of school you go to, what kind of school you graduated from, whether it's international school or American school or national, whether the classes are taught in various languages, or if it's taught only in one language, and whether your school provides any other specific curriculum like advanced placement, international bachelorate, or if you are able to choose your courses, or if you just have to take all same courses. And they see how you are ranked in class. Some schools don't rank students, and some do. So if your school ranks your students, then colleges will look at the ranking. And also grade trends is very important because they don't look at only one year's transcript. They look at at least 3-4 years transcript. So they want to see the trend over the years. Transcript is another essential component in your application. So your secondary school transcript will be used to judge how you do in your school. And make sure your transcripts are all in English. So if your school does not provide your transcript in English, then you have to have it translated by official translator, and it should bear the official stamp. If you attended, however, more than one schools during your secondary school, then you have to submit all the transcripts to schools. And also, if you took any additional college courses during your high school or even after you graduated, then you have to submit your transcripts as well. So about standardized testing, so primary testing would include ACT or ACT. Some universities ask for SAT, some ask for ACT. And usually most schools, most universities and colleges, they accept both ACT and SAT. And some schools are test optional, so you don't have to take the tests. If you have the test scores and if you're satisfied with your score, you can send your scores. And if you don't have to, which means the decision will not be based solely on the standardized testing if the test is optional. And you can use a table that compares ACT and SAT. And the SAT is changing from 2016. So if you are planning to study in the US as 2017 class, in 2017, in the year of 2017, then you would take not the different SAT, the new SAT. However, if you want to study in the US before that, you would need to take the current SAT test. So often colleges and universities, they publish the average or middle 50% for the SAT. So what does it mean when the school provides a middle 50% for their incoming students? It means, for example, Vanderbilt. It means the Vanderbilt admitted the 50% of the students admitted at Vanderbilt was 1470 to 1590. So what is 25? If 50 was between that range, then 25% would be below 1470, and the top 25. The below 25 would be below 1417, and top 25 would be above 1590. So based on that, you can see what the incoming students score on the SAT. So here, for example, it does not provide, many schools don't provide minimum scores on SAT. They usually provide the percentage for their mid 50 and 25. So you can make your decision based on that. So of course your goal is to score as high as you can. However, SAT test is not international. It's offered international, but it's an American test. So universities understand that students do not take SAT test if they want to study in their home in their home countries. So some universities take that under consideration. So the primary testing was SAT. So the secondary testing can be yours. Secondary school testing. It can be AP test scores if your school offers advanced placement test, or if you took AP on your own, then it will be a secondary test score. And if you have IB actual or predicted scores, or even A-level exam scores, then you can send those scores as well. You can ask from the institutions how the scores are reported. If you need to send the actual copies, if you need to send the notarized copies, or if you need to send by mail or by email. And some subject score is also important. Some universities and colleges require subject score. However, many do not require, and many say that their subject test is optional. For international students, especially if your native language is not English, you have to take English proficiency test. The most common English proficiency tests are TOEFL and IELTS. And both IELTS and TOEFL, they test listening, reading, writing, and speaking, the 4 skills that you need to have in order to study in the US or in an environment that English is taught. So IELTS score ranges from 0 to 9, while TOEFL score ranges from 0 to 120. And unlike SAT or ACT, many universities have minimum score, because TOEFL test shows if you are able to understand the lecture, if you are able to study in an English language environment. However, you can also waive TOEFL and IELTS requirement only if you spend an adequate amount of time in English-speaking curriculum, which means if you studied in American or international high school, or if you studied in the US for a certain amount of time, you could ask the university to waive your English language test. And also, if your critical reading on the SAT and the reading section on the ACT is very high, usually universities say what score will be adequate to waive your TOEFL. So if you think your critical reading on both tests the scores, if the scores for the reading tests high, you could ask the university if they can waive your TOEFL test. Okay, another component is the extra and co-curricular activities. So most universities on the application, they will ask the list of activities you've been doing for extra and co-curricular activities. And they ask you how long you've been participating in that activity, how much time you dedicated for that activity, and what your responsibility was, if you had any leadership responsibility, and the description of your responsibility. American colleges, and you can list your honors and awards and other activities. However, universities usually look at the academic and activities. They also look at other activities as well. And also make sure to include part-time work, summer experiences, and other faith-based works. So if you go to church and spend some time in church, then make sure to list that activity under the extracurricular activities. And universities also look at leadership positions. So if you held any leadership responsibility, leadership role in your activity, make sure you mention that. So admissions officer look at the evidence of engagement. So how long they look at how long you've been participating in that activity, how much impact you've made in your community, in your school, how deeply are you involved in that activity. Especially longevity is important. If they would look if you've been doing that activity only during the admissions procedure, or if you've been doing that for a few years even, they would look at that. Secondary school report would be submitted by your counselor. If you don't have counselor at your school, then principal, headmaster, or your teacher can submit that. And the secondary school report is submitted by all schools, either it's American or international school. If your school is not American or international, if your school is not American school, then your school has to submit the international school supplemented school report. The common application has this part, and you could see what they ask in each form. So letters of recommendation is a very important part in your application because the rest of your application materials defined by you. So in your essay, you were writing about yourself. In your application, you are writing listed activities you've been doing. In recommendation letters, the counselor or the teacher will talk about about you, and they will talk about you as a person, as a student. You need to understand the difference between the counselor's letter of recommendation and also teacher's letter of recommendation. The counselor's letter of recommendation it aims to give the college the context of the school. So it gives the overall context of the school and how you do in that context, and how you interact with your faculty, with your peers, and what kind of student you really are, even outside of the class. And the counselor's recommendation is more broad, and it gives more context. And you can ask your counselor, principal, and even a teacher for this letter. However, make sure the counselor's letter covers the important points. Um, Also another point is that the counselor's letter should also mention what kind of curriculum your school has. If your school has IB or if your school has AP courses, or what kind of diploma will you get when you graduate. It's also important to mention if all the students take the same courses without selecting their courses that they're interested in, or if there is any selection or electives available at your school. In Mongolia, the selection is not possible, it's not an option, so all the students take the courses. However, it's important to mention this in the letter of recommendation. If your school provides any specific courses in business engineering, or if your school provides any special concentration, then make sure to mention that in the letter of recommendation. Of course, you won't be writing your letter, so talk with your counselor about the points that the letter should cover. Teachers' letters of recommendation is different from counselor's letter. The teacher's letter usually focuses on only one, on the student in the classroom. It's better if you ask the teacher who teaches the core subjects like math, English, and the language courses, and the letters should talk about you, should give examples in the classroom, how you engaged in classroom during the discussion, how you achieve certain tasks in the classroom, in that class, and your ability in that class, and what kind of student you are in general and overall are in the class. And the teacher submits teacher evaluation also, and it asks various questions about you, and will be concentrated on the above mentioned points. Essay is a very important part. Here you talk. So essay common application used to have 6 prompts. Now they have 5 prompts. And the prompts are the essay questions, and they ask different things. And it's better if you brainstorm your experiences in the past, your achievement, and any dilemma you had in the past or you have currently, and the impact they had on you. So brainstorm on your experience and what do you want to do as a person, as an individual, what do you want to achieve, and what was your past like in the past, right? If you had any difficulties, how you overcame that difficulty, and what the impact was. And also think about the person, if any person that had a significant impact on you. Your role model, maybe the person you look up, and so it's a good idea to brainstorm all the prompts and see what you can come up with the essay. Sometimes students don't, when they're thinking, maybe they don't think they will write good essay in that prompt, but if you brainstorm and actually write a draft, perhaps you might have an idea what to write. And maybe the prompt that you thought might not be good prompt might be useful, or might be even a great prompt for your essay. So it's good to brainstorm and take time in writing application essay. And the school-based applications, they have additional topics, of course. The common application, if the university does not accept common application, you have to fill school-based applications, and that has different questions. So I mentioned some points from here. So be passionate is very important. Don't just talk about it. You should be passionate about the subject you're writing about. And talk about where you come from. The context is very important. So each country is different, and your family is different. The way you raised was different. Your experience is really different from other students. So talk about where you come from. Don't just talk about it. Just give more detailed context. So yeah, getting universities excited about your application is very important, because they'll be reading tons of application essays. So make sure to have your essays engaging and interesting, and show yourself through your essay. Additional elements of your application would be if you are able to go to the school or university, then go to the university and then do interview. You can't find if they can do online interview. And also various universities offer alumni interview, so find if there's any alumni interview. If you have any additional recommenders, for example, coach or a community leader, ask them to write a recommendation letter. That would give another context and will show you from another angle. Also, you can submit art supplement, music supplement. If you created something artistic, you could submit that. And if you have any demonstrated interest, make sure you submit or mention that in your application. And financial need is important. Make sure you mention your financial need in your application. So what is demonstrated need? Do you need to demonstrate a need? Demonstrated interest. So do you need to show interest in the university to which you're applying? Maybe you don't have to. Some universities don't require that you show your interest. However, some universities track your interest by tracking your application form, how you fill your application, when you log in, and how often do you open your emails and correspond with the counselor. That shows your level of interest. And some universities see that. They look at that interest as well. Financial aid. So there are a couple of terms that need to be explained. Need blind financial aid scholarship would be financial aid that's based solely on the application materials you submit. So it doesn't look at your need, doesn't look at your financial status. It looks only at your the holistic application material, which would be a essay, personal recommendation, teacher recommendation, transcript, scores, and everything. Need-where financial aid is financial aid that's based perhaps on the need, on the student's financial status. They might require additional documents to prove your financial status. Fully funded financial aid is it's sometimes called full ride scholarship. Financial aid covers tuition and room and board, and sometimes even transportation. It's rare, but that would be fully funded, and it varies. Usually, universities define what their full scholarship would be. Some includes everything, some don't. Some includes only room and board and tuition, and they call it fully funded financial aid. So it's important to check with the university as well. However, partial funded financial aid would be only partial. would be might be only your tuition or half of your tuition or a small fraction of your tuition. Again, it's important to check with the university what they define the partial financial aid. For the financial aid and scholarships, it's important to understand that you need to apply for the financial aid when you actually submitting the application form. Sometimes students receive their admission letter and then they want to apply for financial aid. It's too late. So apply for the financial aid when you apply for the university. Usually, for most U.S. institutions, it's as early as January and even December. So it's important to start early and apply early. There are a couple of forms, and two main forms are CSS financial aid form, and the other one is International Student Financial Aid form application. The CSS financial aid form is online. You need to create an account on collegeboard.org, and then you choose the universities that participate in CSS system, which means that accept CSS financial aid form, and you fill out one application form, and then you submit it. The difference between CSS and International Student Financial Aid is that CSS is online and International Student Financial Aid is you can send it by paper. So the CSS financial aid charges also money from the students, and it's both of them are similar to common application, which means you create one application and then you send to all the institutions that require the forms. And in addition to these forms, some institutions require additional financial aid application or certificate. So it's very important to check with the institutions and see what documents you need to submit in order to get that financial aid. When you choose your university, it's very important to see the costs, to understand the costs at each institution and budget your costs. So when you look at the costs, on the slide you can see it's from 2012, so the costs and its average cost. Again, the institutions vary, and based on their location, the type of school, the cost varies, and this is average cost. For example, two-year public community colleges would be the cheapest, and they provide associated pay. Four-year public institutions would be less costly than four-year private institutions. And here on the screen, you can see the costs, average costs. So when we talk about costs, it's important to understand what it covers. So besides the previous slide was about the tuition fees, right? So this in addition to tuition and fees, you have to understand what the living cost at that institution would be. As you see on the screen, the room and board might be quite costly, and books and supplies as well. So plan these. So when you select university, if you are allowed to live off campus, if dormitory housing is guaranteed at the institutions, and how much that would be, how much it would be if you live on campus and if you live off campus, and you can compare the costs. So types of merit-based scholarship or merit-based financial aid is like it means the decision to provide financial aid would be based only on the applications and materials you submit, which would be academic achievements, high-test scores, GPA, special talents, if you have any extracurricular activities, if you have any leadership potential, if you play in sports, they look at that. And need-based financial aid would look at your financial status. It's like need-aware financial aid policy that we mentioned in a couple of slides earlier. And need-based scholarships, they look at family income and financial need, and also could provide loan. Need-based scholarship can also cover work and study programs, and also can include certain merits, meaning your achievements. So here's the data. During this 2011 and 2012 academic year, more than 1,000 four-year regionally accredited colleges and universities, they awarded at least 10,000 in need or merit-based funding to international students, or they had an annual comprehensive cost below 20,000, or they brought their annual comprehensive costs to less than 20,000 with scholarship and financial aid. So there are institutions that do provide financial aid to international students. It just takes time and patience to find those institutions, and careful searching and planning will make that happen. Okay, I'll take questions now, so if you have any questions, feel free to submit your questions, and I'll try my best to answer your questions. So my first question, Kamra Shair, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. You didn't specifically mention what degree you want to get. You just said international degree. So as I said, why don't you brainstorm and think about what kind of degree you want and in what kind of environment you want to study. Then you could use the various tools that we list on our educationusa.info website. You could use those tools and narrow your choices. So from here I can. I'm sorry, I should have elaborated the question. The question was asking how you could get the international degree. So I can't really answer this question. If I want to take undergraduate degree in public university, how much cost will be needed? I think I can show you the slide again. So here it shows tuition fees at four-year public institutions. So as you see, it's around 20,000. And keep in mind also that some state